I'm Rachel Harrison, 34, and I built Secure Now from a dream in my apartment to a $50 million tech powerhouse. Then came that board meeting where my father smiled and said those words that changed everything. Your brother is the new CEO. What he never expected was that I'd walk away with every patent client and loyal executive. He created the company on paper, but I was the company in reality. Before I continue my story, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit like and subscribe if you want more stories about standing your ground in business. Technology fascinated me since I was 8 years old when my uncle gave me my first computer. While other girls my age were playing with dolls, I was taking apart hard drives and learning basic coding. My bedroom walls weren't covered with posters of boy bands, but with schematics and tech magazine cutouts. My parents didn't really understand it, especially my father, Thomas Harrison, a traditional businessman who built his wealth in real estate development. Computers are just a passing fad, he would tell me. Focus on something practical, Rachel. But I knew better. I pursued my passion through high school, graduating as valedictorian, and earned a full scholarship to MIT for computer engineering. College opened my eyes to the vast possibilities in tech, but also to the harsh realities of being a woman in a male-dominated industry. For every encouraging professor, there were 3 male classmates who assumed I was there on some diversity initiative rather than merit. After graduating with honors, I landed a job at a prestigious tech firm in Silicon Valley. The pay was good, but the culture was suffocating. My ideas were often dismissed or worse, appropriated by male colleagues who would receive the credit. After 3 frustrating years, I noticed something significant. Small businesses were being targeted by sophisticated cyber attacks, but all the security solutions were designed and priced for large corporations. There's a huge market gap here, I told my roommate Alicia one night. Small businesses need cybersecurity too, but no one's serving them properly. That realization sparked Secure Now. I spent nights and weekends developing a prototype for affordable, user-friendly cybersecurity software specifically designed for small businesses. I emptied my savings account of $20,000 and moved back into a tiny studio apartment to cut expenses. The initial investment rounds were brutal. I pitched to 57 investors in 6 months. 53 rejected me outright, many barely looking at my business plan before showing me the door. The market is too niche, one told me. Security is a saturated field, said another. Come back when you have a male co-founder. One particularly honest venture capitalist suggested. My father's reaction was predictably dismissive when I shared my business plans during a family dinner. Rachel, sweetheart, you're smart, but business requires a certain instinct that's just different, he said, glancing meaningfully at my younger brother Maxwell, who was working as a junior associate at our father's company, despite barely passing business school. Maxwell smirked. Yeah, Rach, not everyone can handle the pressure. Those comments fueled my determination. I finally secured a modest investment of $150,000 from a female angel investor, Diane Fletcher, who had faced similar barriers in her career. I'm not just investing in your product, Diane told me. I'm investing in you and every woman who deserves a seat at the table. With that initial funding, I rented a small office space and assembled my core team, Jasmine Chen, a brilliant software engineer I'd met at MIT, Marcus Williams, a cybersecurity expert disillusioned with his corporate job, Sarah Thompson, a marketing wizard who believed in my vision, and Daniel Rodriguez, a sales professional with deep connections in the small business community. Those early days were grueling. We worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week. While we developed our first product, I lived on ramen noodles and coffee, pouring every spare cent back into the company. Maxwell occasionally called to ask how my little project was going, his condescension thinly veiled. The product development faced numerous obstacles. 3 months in, we discovered a fundamental flaw in our encryption algorithm that required a complete redesign. Our initial server infrastructure collapsed under testing loads. 2 team members quit when a competitor offered them higher salaries we couldn't match. But we persevered. 9 months after founding Secure Now, we launched our first product, an affordable, comprehensive cybersecurity suite designed specifically for businesses with fewer than 50 employees. The timing was perfect, coming just after a major ransomware attack had targeted thousands of small businesses nationwide. Tech blogs picked up our story. Secure Now David's slingshot against cyber Goliaths read one headline. Small Business Monthly featured us in their Innovations to Watch section. Our phones started ringing with potential clients, and within 3 months we had signed our 100th customer. My father called after seeing an industry newsletter mention Secure Now. "Well," he said, sounding genuinely surprised, "looks like your little computer thing might actually work out." I simply replied, "It's just the beginning, Dad." The 5 years following our initial product launch were a whirlwind of growth and achievement. Secure Now expanded from our core team of 5 to 50 employees then to over 120. We moved from our cramped office to an entire floor in a downtown high-rise with modern workspaces and the kind of company culture I had always dreamed of creating. Our product line evolved from a single security suite to a comprehensive platform offering everything from advanced threat detection to employee security training. I personally led the development of our flagship innovation, an AI-powered security system that could predict and prevent attacks before they happened, something previously available only to enterprises with 7-figure security budgets. "This is revolutionary," said the CTO of a mid-sized healthcare company after implementing our system. "You just saved us from what could have been a catastrophic data breach." The industry took notice. We won Best Security Solution at the National Tech Awards 2 years running. I was named to Forbes 30 Under 30 and later their Women in Tech to Watch list. Silicon Valley Insider called Secure Now the rare unicorn that's actually solving a real problem. My leadership style was hands-on and personal. I knew every employee by name, understood their roles, and valued their input. Friday afternoons became innovation sessions, where anyone in the company could pitch ideas directly to me. Several of our most successful features came from junior team members during these sessions. "You've created something special here," Marcus told me during our 5th anniversary celebration. "It's not just the product or the profits, it's the people. We all feel like we're building something important together." Our proprietary technology became increasingly valuable. I personally filed 23 patents, each one representing countless hours of problem-solving and creative thinking. These patents formed the legal bedrock of our competitive advantage, something I made sure was structured carefully in the company bylaws to protect our innovations. Client relationships were another area where my personal touch made a difference. I regularly met with our largest clients not just for courtesy calls but to truly understand their challenges. The CEO of Robinson Manufacturing, a company with 500 employees across 3 states, became a vocal advocate after we prevented a sophisticated attack targeting their customer data. "Rachel doesn't just sell you software," he told industry peers at a conference where I was speaking. "She and her team become partners in your security." By our 5th year, we had opened offices in Boston, Chicago, and Austin, in addition to our San Francisco headquarters. We were serving over 2,000 clients from local law firms to regional hospital networks. Our annual revenue crossed the $50 million mark with profit margins that made industry analysts take notice. It was around this time that my father's attitude towards Secure Now underwent a remarkable transformation. The man who had dismissed my little computer thing now boasted about his daughter's company at his country club. He began calling weekly for updates on our stock value and growth projections. "You know, Rachel," he said during one such call, "I always knew you had it in you. Harrison business sense runs in the blood." More concerning was Maxwell's sudden interest in the company. My brother, who couldn't tell a firewall from a fire drill, started showing up at industry events where Secure Now was featured. He introduced himself to our clients as Rachel's brother from the Harrison family that owns Secure Now, implying a level of involvement and ownership that simply didn't exist. When I confronted him about it at a family dinner, he laughed it off. "Can't a guy be proud of his big sister? Besides, family businesses are kind of our thing as Harrisons." My father nodded approvingly. "Maxwell's right. The Harrison name means something in business circles. Having him associated with Secure Now can only help your image. I should have recognized these as warning signs, but I was focused on our upcoming expansion into international markets and a potential Series C funding round that would value the company at over $200 million. Besides, despite their flaws, they were family. I never imagined they would try to take what I had built. Family and business rarely mix well, warned Jasmine, my CTO and closest friend, after meeting my father and brother at our company holiday party. Your father kept asking me about our corporate structure and voting rights. He's just taking an interest, I replied, dismissing her concerns. He finally sees this is a real business. That was my first major mistake. I failed to see that their newfound interest wasn't pride in my accomplishments, it was recognition of the value I had created, value they now wanted to control. The intrusion began subtly, with my father suggesting he could add value to Secure Now with his business experience. You've done amazingly with the technical side, Rachel, he said over lunch one day. But as you scale, you'll need seasoned business guidance. I think I should join your board in an advisory capacity. Against my better judgment and the concerned looks from my executive team, I agreed to create an advisory board position for him. I thought having him involved in a limited capacity might actually improve our strained relationship. That was my second major mistake. Within weeks, my father was showing up unannounced at our offices, scheduling meetings with my department heads, without informing me, and bringing Maxwell along to board meetings where he had no official role. I'm just observing, Maxwell would say with that smirk I'd known since childhood, learning the family business. The problems escalated when my father began questioning my decisions in front of the team. During a strategy meeting about our international expansion, I outlined our plan to enter the European market through partnerships with established local security firms. That's playing too small, my father interrupted. Harrison companies go in big or not at all. You should be acquiring these firms, not partnering with them. Our analysis shows that approach would increase our risk exposure by 300%, I explained calmly. The regulatory environment in the EU makes partnerships the more prudent approach. Prudent, he scoffed. Is that what they taught you at MIT? In my day, we weren't afraid to take real business risks. These exchanges became more frequent and more undermining. Maxwell would sit silently during these confrontations, but I'd catch him smiling whenever our father dismissed my expertise. My executive team began expressing concerns in private. Daniel, our chief revenue officer, pulled me aside after a particularly tense meeting. Rachel, your father contradicted our entire sales strategy in front of the regional directors, he said. They're confused about who's actually making decisions here. I know, I replied. I'll talk to him about respecting the chain of command. But my attempts to establish boundaries with my father were futile. Don't be so sensitive, he'd say. I'm just trying to help you succeed. That's what fathers do. The situation worsened when we entered negotiations for a major contract with National Financial Group, a potential client that would add $7 million to our annual revenue. I had cultivated this relationship for months, personally leading the security assessment and tailoring a solution for their specific needs. The day of the final presentation, my father and Maxwell showed up unannounced. We thought we'd lend the Harrison touch to close the deal, my father announced, straightening his custom suit. Before I could object, they had introduced themselves to the national financial executives and taken seats at the head of the table. Throughout my presentation, my father interrupted with anecdotes about his real estate deals that had nothing to do with cybersecurity. Maxwell handed out his personal business cards to the executives. Somehow, despite their interference, we secured the contract. But at the company-wide announcement of our success, my father stood up uninvited. I'm proud to announce that Maxwell was instrumental in bringing this deal to completion, he declared. His relationship with National Financial's CFO from their Harvard days really sealed the deal. I stood there speechless as Maxwell basked in the applause for work he had nothing to do with. Later, when I confronted them both, my father waved away my concerns. Perception is reality in business, Rachel. The clients need to see strong male leadership involved in the company. It gives them confidence. Family gatherings became increasingly tense. Sunday dinners at my parents' home, once merely uncomfortable, now felt like walking into enemy territory. My mother, always passive in business matters, would try to change the subject whenever Maxwell and my father began talking about the future of Secure Now, as if it were their company. "Have you thought about taking a vacation, Rachel?" my mother suggested during one such dinner. "You've been working so hard for years. Maybe you need some balance." "She can't take time off now," my father interjected. "Not with Maxwell stepping up to take more responsibility at Secure Now. There's too much transition work to do." "Transition work?" I asked, putting down my fork. "What transition are you talking about?" My father and Maxwell exchanged glances. "Just thinking ahead," Maxwell said smoothly. "Every company needs succession planning." I tried discussing my concerns with Sarah, our CMO, but she revealed something even more alarming. "Rachel, your father and brother have been meeting with our investors without you," she said, showing me an email that had been accidentally forwarded to her. "They met with venture partners last week." The subject line was, "Secure Now Leadership Structure." That night I couldn't sleep. I pulled up our company legal documents and began reviewing the corporate structure I had established years earlier. On paper, I owned 62% of the company, with the rest distributed among investors and employee stock options. My father had no official ownership stake. So what was he planning? I would find out soon enough, in the most painful way possible. The quarterly board meeting was scheduled for a Thursday morning in May. I arrived early to prepare the conference room and review my presentation on our record-breaking quarter. We had exceeded revenue projections by 22% and reduced customer acquisition costs by a third. I was excited to share these achievements with the board and discuss our growth strategy for the coming year. As board members arrived, I noticed my father seemed unusually animated, walking around greeting everyone with an energy I hadn't seen in him for years. Maxwell was there too, dressed in a suit nearly identical to our father's, shaking hands with board members he had no business knowing so well. "What's Maxwell doing here?" I asked my father quietly. "I invited him," he replied. "There are some important matters to discuss today that concern him." Before I could press further, he called the meeting to order. I delivered my presentation, sharing our impressive quarterly results and outlining our roadmap for the next 18 months. The board members seemed pleased, asking thoughtful questions about our technology pipeline and international expansion plans. Then my father cleared his throat and stood up. "Before we conclude, I'd like to propose a change to our leadership structure," he announced, not looking at me. "As Secure Now enters this next growth phase, we need to consider what's best for the company's long-term success." The room went quiet. I felt a chill run through me as I realized what was happening. "While Rachel has done an admirable job getting the company to this point," he continued, "I believe Secure Now requires more traditional business leadership to reach its full potential." He turned to Maxwell, who sat up straighter in his chair. "Therefore, I propose that Maxwell Harrison assume the role of Chief Executive Officer, with Rachel transitioning to Chief Technology Officer, focusing on what she does best, the technical aspects of the business." He smiled at my brother and then at me, as if he'd just given me a gift rather than trying to steal my company. "Your brother is the new CEO." The words hung in the air like poison. Maxwell's face bore a smug smile that I'd seen countless times growing up, the look he had whenever our father favored him despite his mediocrity. Several board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Janet Wilson, our lead investor from the series Around, spoke first. "Thomas, with all due respect, this seems highly irregular. Rachel founded this company and has led it to extraordinary success. What specifically does Maxwell bring that you feel is missing under Rachel's leadership?" My father was prepared for this question. A Harrison man has led every successful family business for 3 generations. It's about the family legacy and providing the kind of leadership that large clients and future investors expect. Maxwell has been groomed in the Harrison business tradition. "But he has zero experience in technology," objected Martin Green, another board member. "Secure Now is a cybersecurity company, not a real estate development firm." "Business principles are universal," my father declared confidently. "Maxwell has been shadowing Rachel for months now. He understands the business side, which is what matters at this stage. I finally found my voice. This is absurd. I founded this company. I built it from nothing. I hold the patents. I built the client relationships. Maxwell doesn't even understand our basic technology stack. That's why you'll make an excellent CTO, my father said condescendingly. You can handle all the technical details while Maxwell focuses on the big picture. The big picture is technical in a technology company. I stood up, my hands shaking with anger. This is my company. It's a family company, my father corrected. And families need proper leadership. We'll take a vote now. Thanks to the company structure I had created and my majority ownership, they couldn't force this change without my consent. The vote failed, but the damage was done. My own father had tried to stage a corporate coup and hand my life's work to my brother, who had contributed nothing. After the meeting, I confronted my father in his office. How could you do this? I demanded. I built Secure Now from nothing while Maxwell was failing upward at your company. He knows nothing about cybersecurity or running a tech company. Rachel, you're getting emotional, my father said dismissively. This isn't personal. It's business. Maxwell has the Harrison name and the executive presence that major clients respond to. You're brilliant with computers, no one denies that. But as CEO, you've reached your ceiling. My ceiling? We've grown 800% in 5 years under my leadership. And imagine how much further you could go with proper business leadership, he replied. You should be grateful. Many founders get pushed out entirely. We're keeping you in a role that suits your abilities. Later that evening, I found Maxwell at the bar of his exclusive club, celebrating as if the CEO position was already his. There's my sister, the soon-to-be best CTO in the business, he called out, raising his glass. This isn't happening, Max, I said firmly. I won't let it. He leaned in the alcohol, making him more honest than usual. It's already done, Rach. Dad's been working on this for months. Most of the investors are on board. They know having a Harrison man at the helm will take the company to the next level. You can fight it and look like a hysterical woman, or you can accept the generous offer to stay on as CTO. Your choice. I returned home that night and couldn't sleep. All I could think about was the company I had built from nothing, the nights I'd worked until dawn. The second mortgage I'd taken on my condo during our cash flow crunch in year 2. The vacations I'd skipped, the relationships I'd put on hold, all to build Secure Now. And now my father and brother wanted to take it from me because they thought a man, specifically a Harrison man, should be in charge. As I stared at the ceiling, I realized I had been naive. The signs had been there for months: my father's increasing involvement, Maxwell shadowing me, the private meetings with investors. I had ignored the warning signals because I couldn't believe my own family would betray me this way. By morning, I knew I wouldn't let them take what I had built. It was time to protect myself and everything I had created. The next morning, I called Jasmine, Marcus, Sarah, and Daniel, my original team, and now C-suite executives, and asked them to meet me at my apartment rather than the office. When they arrived, their faces showed concern. What's going on, Rachel? Jasmine asked. You look like you haven't slept. I told them everything: the board meeting, my father's plan to install Maxwell as CEO, and the months of behind-the-scenes manipulation. I always knew your brother was a jerk, but this is something else, Marcus said, shaking his head in disbelief. What are you going to do? Sarah asked. Fight it out in the boardroom. I took a deep breath. I'm leaving Secure Now. Their shock was palpable. You can't be serious, Daniel protested. This is your company. I'm deadly serious, I replied. But I'm not just walking away. I'm taking what's rightfully mine with me, and I need to know if you're with me. Over the next hour, I outlined my plan. They listened intently, asking questions and offering suggestions. By the time we finished our second pot of coffee, we had the beginnings of a strategy. That afternoon, I met with Patricia Baldwin, a corporate attorney, specializing in intellectual property, who had no connection to Secure Now or my father's network. Based on these documents, Patricia said, after reviewing our corporate structure, you have several viable options. The patents are registered to you personally and licensed to Secure Now, which gives you significant leverage. Additionally, the non-compete clauses in your executive contracts have unusual carve-outs that could be interpreted in your favor. Those carve-outs were my father's idea, ironically, I explained. He wanted to ensure family members could start related businesses if necessary. He never imagined I'd use that provision against him. Patricia continued her analysis. Your ownership structure also gives you certain rights they can't easily override. But we need to move carefully. What they're attempting could be considered a hostile action. But if you respond improperly, you could face legal consequences. Over the next 2 weeks, I operated on 2 tracks. Publicly, I went to the office every day, ran meetings, and gave no indication that anything was amiss. I even had lunch with Maxwell, listening patiently as he outlined his vision for my company. Privately, I executed my exit strategy with meticulous care. First, I documented everything, every contribution I had made to the company, every patent, every key client relationship I had personally cultivated. I gathered emails, meeting notes, and development logs, demonstrating my central role in all major innovations. Second, I secured digital backups of all my work within legal boundaries. As the creator of most of our core technology, I had legitimate access to this information, but I was careful to follow all security protocols and document my actions to avoid any accusation of intellectual theft. Third, I met individually with each of our key executives beyond my core team. I didn't explicitly ask them to leave with me, but I asked hypothetical questions like, if things change dramatically at Secure Now, what would you do? Most expressed loyalty to me rather than the company structure. Fourth, I carefully reviewed all client contracts, confirming what I already suspected most had clauses requiring my personal involvement in their security solutions. This was something I had insisted on from the beginning, a commitment to hands-on leadership that clients valued. Fifth, I incorporated a new entity, Phoenix Security, with a business model that improved upon Secure Now's approach based on everything I had learned over the years. The emotional toll was immense. Each night I returned home exhausted from maintaining my professional facade while secretly planning my exit. I felt grief for the company I had built, anger at my family's betrayal, and fear about the uncertain future. But beneath it all was a steely determination that grew stronger each day. Are you sure about this? Jasmine asked during one of our planning sessions. We could still fight this out in the boardroom. You have voting control. I'm sure, I replied. Even if I win this battle, the war will continue. My father won't stop trying to take control, and I refuse to spend the next decade fighting my own family for what's already mine. Better to make a clean break and build something new, something they can never take from me. A week before my planned exit, I met secretly with our top 5 clients, including the CEO of Robinson Manufacturing, who had become a friend over the years. I wanted you to hear this from me directly, I told him. There are significant changes coming at Secure Now. My father is attempting to replace me with my brother, who has no experience in cybersecurity. His expression darkened. We signed with Secure Now because of you, Rachel. Your expertise is what we trust. I understand and I value our relationship. That's why I wanted to be transparent about what's happening. What are your plans? He asked directly. I'm starting a new security company with my core team. I can't solicit you as a client while still at Secure Now, but I wanted you to have all the information to make your own decisions when the time comes. He nodded thoughtfully. I appreciate your integrity. Keep me informed. Similar conversations with other key clients yielded the same result. They had signed with Secure Now because of me and my team, not because of the company name. The final piece fell into place when Patricia confirmed that my personal ownership of the patents gave me significant leverage. The licensing agreement requires your approval for any significant changes to how the patents are used, she explained. If you revoke or modify that license, they'll have serious problems. The night before my planned exit, I sat alone in my apartment looking at photos of Secure Now's journey, our first tiny office, the team celebrating our first $1 million in revenue, the award ceremonies, the client appreciation events. I had poured my heart and soul into building something meaningful. They think Secure Now is just an asset they can transfer, I said to myself. They're about to learn that I am Secure Now. With that thought, I finally felt at peace with my decision. I sent a text to my core team. Tomorrow we rise from the ashes. The next morning, I arrived at the office earlier than usual, dressed in my most confident outfit, a tailored charcoal suit that I reserved for our biggest client presentations. I greeted everyone with my usual warmth, giving no indication that this was anything but a normal day. My executive team did the same, though I caught knowing glances between them. At 9:30, I received the email I had been expecting, a meeting request from my father for the executive team at 11 o'clock. 1. The subject line read Leadership Transition Discussion. So predictable. I spent the next hour finishing some important tasks and sending several pre-drafted emails that would be triggered after the meeting. At 10:55, I gathered my things and walked calmly to the conference room, where my father Maxwell and several board members were already seated. "Rachel, good you're here," my father said, looking unusually pleased. "We have exciting news to share with the executive team." "Actually, I have an announcement of my own to make first," I said, standing at the head of the table, a position my father had clearly intended to occupy. The door opened, and Jasmine, Marcus, Sarah, and Daniel entered along with our CFO Ben and our Chief Product Officer Amelia, all looking resolute. "Effective immediately, I am resigning. As CEO of Secure Now," I announced, my voice steady and clear. My father's smile widened for a moment before I continued. "I'm not alone. Standing with me are the Chief Technology Officer, Chief Revenue Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Financial Officer, and Chief Product Officer, who are also submitting their resignations effective immediately." The smile vanished from my father's face. Maxwell looked confused, glancing between me and our father as if waiting for instructions on how to react. "You can't all leave," my father sputtered. "You have contracts, obligations." "Our contracts have been reviewed by our legal counsel," I replied calmly. "We are in compliance with all terms. Our resignation letters detail the transition of our current projects to remaining staff, and we've prepared documentation for all ongoing work." "This is ridiculous," Maxwell interjected. "You're just throwing a tantrum because Dad wants to put someone qualified in charge." I ignored him and continued. "Additionally, I am modifying the licensing terms for all 23 patents currently used by Secure Now, which, as you know, are registered to me personally. The new terms restrict their use to existing products only, with no permission for further development based on the patented technologies." My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "You can't do that. Those patents belong to the company." "Actually, no. They belong to me and are licensed to Secure Now under specific terms that give me this authority. Your own lawyers insisted on this structure in the early days when you didn't think my little computer project would amount to anything. You can review the agreements at your leisure." I placed a folder on the table containing the legal documents Patricia had prepared. "Furthermore, I should inform you that I've had individual conversations with our top 20 clients who represent 70% of our annual revenue. While I have not solicited their business for any new venture, they are all aware of the leadership changes you are planning. They'll be receiving formal notification of my departure this afternoon." The room was silent now. Even Maxwell seemed to grasp the severity of the situation. "We'll sue you for everything you're worth," my father finally growled. "This is corporate sabotage." "No, Dad," I said, looking him directly in the eye. "This is the consequence of trying to steal a company from the person who built it. Everything I've done is legal and within my rights. You thought Secure Now was just an asset you could transfer to your son because of some outdated notion of male leadership and family legacy. You failed to understand that the company's value was never in its name or its office or even its current products. The value was in the people who built it, the people standing with me right now." I gathered my things and headed for the door, my executive team beside me. "Rachel, wait," my father called, his tone suddenly conciliatory. "We can discuss this. There's no need for such drastic action." I turned back one last time. "There's nothing to discuss. You made your choice and now I've made mine. Maxwell can be CEO of whatever's left. Good luck to you both." We walked out together, heads held high as employees watched in confusion. By the time we reached the lobby, our resignation emails had been delivered company-wide, explaining that we were leaving to pursue new opportunities, but providing no additional details. The industry reaction was swift and dramatic. by mid-afternoon tech blogs were reporting on the mass exodus of SecureNow's founding team. By evening, financial analysts were speculating about the company's future without its core leadership and intellectual property advantages. The following day, 3 of our largest clients announced they were reviewing their security partnerships, a thinly veiled threat that sent SecureNow's privately traded shares plummeting. Within a week, 5 more members of the senior technical team had resigned to join us at Phoenix Security. My father's legal threats proved empty. Our attorneys had ensured that every step we took was legally sound. The non-compete clauses that should have prevented us from starting a competing business contained exemptions for family members pursuing related business interests. Language my father had insisted on years earlier to protect Maxwell's future options. 2 weeks after our departure, I received my first direct communication from my father, a terse email with a settlement offer that would have given SecureNow expanded rights to my patents in exchange for a significant payment. I declined. A month later, industry newsletters reported that SecureNow had lost over 40% of its client base and was struggling to maintain its product line without the architects of its technology. Maxwell gave an awkward interview to Tech Insider, where he claimed to be reinventing the company for its next chapter, but couldn't articulate any clear vision or understanding of the cybersecurity landscape. My father tried different approaches to reach me, angry emails, pleading messages through my mother, and finally a lunch invitation to discuss the situation as family. I maintained my strategic silence, focusing entirely on building Phoenix Security into everything SecureNow could have been and more. When a mutual connection told me my father was now telling people I had overreacted to a simple management suggestion, I finally broke my silence with a single professional action. I published a case study on secure leadership transitions in tech companies using anonymous but recognizable details from my experience. It became required reading in several business school ethics courses. 6 months after our departure, SecureNow announced a strategic restructuring and laid off 30% of its staff. The company that had once been valued at over $100 million was now fighting for survival. I took no pleasure in watching something I had built struggle, but I recognized that SecureNow without its founding team and vision was no longer the company I had created. The shell might have kept the name, but the heart and soul had moved on. Phoenix Security launched officially 3 months after our departure from SecureNow, with a name that symbolized our rebirth from the ashes of what we had left behind. We secured initial funding easily, our reputation and track record speaking for themselves. Venture capital firms that had previously dealt with my father now dealt directly with me, no male business translator required. The company structure I established was fundamentally different from SecureNow's. While I maintained a significant ownership stake as founder and CEO, I implemented an equitable distribution of shares among the executive team and created a generous stock option plan for all employees. No single person, not even me, could make unilateral decisions about the company's future. "We're building something that can outlast any one of us," I explained at our first all-hands meeting. "Something that values merit and contribution over titles or family connections." Our first year exceeded all projections. 80% of SecureNow's former top clients signed with Phoenix within 6 months. Our team grew to 60 employees, many of them former SecureNow staff who joined us once their contract terms allowed. The culture we created was collaborative and innovative, with transparent communication and clear paths for advancement based on merit rather than politics. The technological advances we achieved in that first year surpassed what we had accomplished in 3 years at SecureNow. Freed from my father's interference and backward-looking business philosophies, we embraced cutting-edge approaches to security that incorporated machine learning and predictive analytics in ways that set new industry standards. As Phoenix Security thrived, SecureNow continued its decline. 18 months after our departure, they announced they were being acquired by a larger security firm for a fraction of their former valuation. Maxwell was not retained in the acquisition, and my father was removed from the board. It was around this time that I received a handwritten letter from my father, the first time he had ever written to me, rather than typing or dictating to his assistant. Rachel, it began, I was wrong. My old-fashioned ideas about business and family cost me not only a successful company but more importantly my relationship with my brilliant daughter. What I did was unforgivable, driven by pride and outdated notions about who should lead. I can see now that you were always the right person to lead the company you built. Maxwell has moved on to another position in my company where I can mentor him properly. If you ever find it in your heart to speak with me again, I would be grateful for the opportunity to apologize in person. I read the letter several times, my emotions cycling through anger, vindication, and finally a kind of tired acceptance. The apology came too late to save Secure Now or to erase the pain of betrayal, but it represented a small step toward potential healing. My personal journey during this time was as transformative as my professional one. The betrayal by my family had left deep wounds, but building Phoenix Security provided a healing path. I worked with a therapist to process my feelings of betrayal and to establish healthier boundaries with my family. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during the all-consuming years of building Secure Now and even began dating again after years of putting my personal life on hold. The irony, I told Jasmine during a rare weekend away at a spa retreat, is that losing Secure Now freed me to create something even better, not just a better company but a better life. 2 years after founding Phoenix Security, we reached a valuation of $100 million, twice what Secure Now had achieved in 5 years. Industry analysts attributed our rapid growth to our innovative technology, but also to our company culture and leadership philosophy. When Tech Visionary magazine asked to profile me for their cover story, I agreed on the condition that it would focus on our team approach rather than just on me as an individual leader. The resulting article, Rising from the Ashes: How Phoenix Security Redefined Tech Leadership, became one of their most shared pieces. As for reconciliation with my family, I eventually agreed to meet my father for coffee after months of consistent, respectful outreach from him. The conversation was difficult, but necessary. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness," he said, looking older and humbler than I remembered. "I'm just asking for a chance to learn how to be a better father to the remarkable woman you've become." It was the first time in my life I had heard him acknowledge my achievements, without qualification or comparison to male standards of success. We have slowly rebuilt a different kind of relationship, not based on business but on mutual respect as individuals. Maxwell and I maintain a distant but civil relationship. He has never directly apologized for his role in the attempted takeover, but I've made peace with that. Some siblings will never be close, and that's okay. Phoenix Security continues to thrive beyond my wildest expectations. We reached the $100 million revenue mark in our 3rd year, something that had taken Secure Now twice as long to achieve. More importantly, we've built a company culture that reflects the values I always wanted to embody: innovation, integrity, inclusion, and individual empowerment. The most meaningful validation came not from our financial success but from a young female engineer who approached me after a company all-hands meeting. "I joined Phoenix because of you," she told me. "Not just because you're successful, but because you stood up for yourself and created something better when faced with injustice. You showed me what's possible." That moment crystallized the most important lesson from my journey. Sometimes losing what you've built opens the door to creating something far better than you ever imagined possible. The betrayal that once felt like the end of my story became merely a difficult chapter in a much larger, more successful narrative. If you're facing your own version of betrayal or injustice, especially in a family business context, remember that your value isn't determined by others' ability to recognize it. Sometimes walking away with your talent, vision, and integrity intact is the most powerful move you can make. Have you ever had to walk away from something you built because others failed to value your contribution? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience and reinvention. And don't forget to share with anyone who might need to be reminded of their own power to rise from the ashes of betrayal. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is massive success on your own terms.